Morning, students, and welcome back to the online English classes. Today we are going to complete this chapter Indigo, for which already I had taken parts in the previous session. And before I move on to the very last part of this chapter, let's have a quick review of what we have studied in the previous videos. Previously, I have told you that this book, been written by Louis Fisher, is a book of his about the life of Mahatma Gandhi, from which an excerpt has been taken for you people. And in this, when he went for an interview to Gandhiji, Gandhiji said to him that he would like to narrate the incident which has urged him how to chase the Britishers out of the motherland. He said that it was around in 1916 he had gone to Lucknow to attend a meeting of Indian National Congress, where he happens to meet a poor peasant named Rajkumar Shukla, who came all the way from Champaran to take Gandhiji to Champaran. The reason was the injustice done towards the peasants by the British landlords. And then he followed Gandhiji everywhere because Gandhiji was very busy. But Gandhiji was very highly impressed by the determination and the firmness of this poor illiterate man, and then he decided he will go with him after the Calcutta meeting. For that also months passed, and then Shukla, as promised by Gandhiji after the meeting, boarded the train to Patna, Bihar. There they got down and he was taken to Rajendra Prasad's house, lawyer, and there Mr. Rajendra Prasad was not available, but instead the servants there treated both of them badly because they thought they were not knowing who Gandhiji was, and they considered him to be like Shukla and another peasant, and the height of untouchability, the peak of untouchability in India at that time could be very clearly seen in this incident. Gandhiji was not allowed to draw even a bucket of water in case if water, some drops falls there, the entire place will get polluted. So Gandhiji, instead of going to Champaran, he decided to go to Muzaffarpur to collect some more details about the case, and he telegrammed to J.B. Kripalani, one professor he happens to meet in Shantiniketan, and then he reached Muzaffarpur on 15th April 1917 midnight. He was received by numerous number of students, and he stayed for 2 days in Professor Malkani's house. He appreciated this gesture of Kripalani because in those days it was really a person needed a lot of courage to harbor a man like him, Gandhiji, who was an advocate of home rule. The coming of Gandhiji spread like a jungle fire, and not only to Muzaffarpur but to Champaran. Everybody wanted to see who the champion is, and then the lawyers met Gandhiji, told him all about the case, gave the briefing and about the fees. They got nice scolding from Gandhiji because he was totally depressed by the fact that the lawyers were charging high fees from the poor peasants. And Gandhiji came to a conclusion after listening to all those things that there was no use of going to the court because the poor peasants, they were totally fear stricken, and the most important thing was to take out this fear from their heart. Now, when I spoke about this lesson in the beginning, I said about indigo sharecropping. Let's see the indigo sharecropping. Indigo sharecropping means in the agricultural lands over there in Champaran were possessed or were owned by the British landlords, and the Indian farmers have to take land on rent for agriculture, and it was mandatory, compulsory, that they should grow in the 15% of the rented land indigo, and that harvested indigo must be handed over to the British landlords as rent. It was going on till the Germans manufactured synthetic indigo, and the Britishers, they said to the Indian farmers that if you want to be out of this agreement, you have to give us compensation. And when this happened, then automatically the peasants who were very much troubled by this agreement, some of them they agreed, they gave the money, but some did. And others also, when they came to know the actual reason, they also started asking their money back, and the problem started. And at this moment, Gandhiji arrived there. Gandhiji started collecting more facts about this issue. He went to the British Landlord Association, where he was treated like an outsider, and then he went to the British Official Commissioner in Tirhut division, where he was bullied, he was threatened, and was asked to quit Tirhut. He didn't listen. Instead, he went to Motihari, capital of Champaran, took a house, turned it into a headquarter, and started his investigation. One day he got the news about a peasant being maltreated in a nearby village. He mounted on the back of an elephant, and he was just proceeding towards that side when he was stopped by a messenger from the police superintendent, and was asked to go back to the place from where he started. Gandhiji obliged, and he went back over there. He was handed an official notice to quit Champaran. He took the notice, read it, signed it, and wrote in that I am going to disobey this order. What could have been the possible result of this? A government official order is being disobeyed. So obviously he received the summons, means a court case charged upon him. And the next day he was supposed to appear in the court. That night he stayed awake. He telegraphed to Rajendra Prasad to bring all the influential people over there to the place, and also he wrote to his ashram, and he prepared the full report of this entire thing to be sent to the viceroy. The next day morning, the entire Motihari was black with peasants. The government was totally baffled, shocked by seeing this demonstration, because nobody ever expected this. It was not that they knew about Gandhi, about the South Africa case and all those things. They just knew one thing: a Mahatma came to help them, and now he himself is in trouble. So they were there to support him. This was the first time that the Britishers have seen so many numbers of people, Indians, standing together. And then they turned towards Gandhiji to regulate the crowd. He did it. But he also gave a solid proof, a concrete one, that Britishers till now, your strength, which nobody ever questioned, is going to be challenged by the Indians. In the court, it was requested that the trial must be postponed. Gandhiji protested this. He said, he read the statement in which he was proved guilty. He said that he was torn between two duties: one towards the law as a barrister, and the second one towards the human, because that's what his conscience was telling him. He asked what penalties were due. The magistrate said that after 2 hours recess he will give his judgment, and he asked Gandhiji to furnish the bail. Gandhiji said, I am not going to. And magistrate was left with no option. He left Gandhiji for the 2-hour recess without bail. And after 2 hours recess, when the court resumed the work, magistrate said that after a few days I will give the judgment, and Gandhiji was at liberty. Now, after that, we have seen that many lawyers, prominent ones, very famous lawyers, they came to meet Gandhiji, and Gandhiji asked them 2 questions. First one, what you would do if I go to jail? If I am sent to jail, what will be your lookout? One lawyer, he said, what we will do? We will go back home, because we came for you. If you go to jail, we will go back home. Then Gandhiji said, then what about the sharecropper and the injustice? Now, everyone was bummed. What to say? So they all went to one corner for meeting, and they started discussing among themselves, in the words of Rajendra Prasad, that if this man, Gandhiji, he is not even from this district, he is ready to go to prison for the sharecroppers. We belong to this district and to the nearby. If we don't do anything, it will be an act of shame. So they went to Gandhi and they said, we are ready to go to jail. We are ready to follow you. And Gandhiji said, the battle of Champaran is won. Then they just made a plan, divided into groups, that if tomorrow any of those things happens, how to do the how to give the court arrest. After several days, Gandhiji got one written order from the magistrate that the case has been dropped because lieutenant governor of that area, that province, had said so. And in this way, first time in modern India, civil disobedience means, very humbly, in a non-violent manner, disobedience was shown towards the Britisher, and it was trimmed in our country. Gandhi and the other lawyers, they didn't sit down quietly. They continued with the investigation, and they started collecting numerous evidences, lots of documents, written documents from the peasants against the landlords. So lots of activities were throbbing in that area, with one group doing the investigation and the other group, the landlords, protesting. Then in the month of June, Gandhiji received summon from Sir Edward Gate, the lieutenant governor. And immediately Gandhiji, he called his associates and he made a backup plan in case if he don't return back, if any kind of conspiracy. But then he had some 4 long meetings with the lieutenant governor, and then a commission was formed which comprised of landlords, government officials, and the only one sole representative of the peasants, that is Mr. Gandhi. And then Gandhiji's stay in Champaran was really a amusing one, because when he left Calcutta and came towards Champaran, he thought that I'll go to Champaran, I'll listen to the matter and it will be sorted out and I'll come back again over here. But it has been said that around some 1 year of Gandhiji's life is been taken by this Champaran episode. He was very much occupied with all things related to Champaran. Now, while the commission was set up, Gandhiji furnished numerous number of evidences, big evidences against these planters, the landlords, that they have illegally and by deceiving the poor peasants, they have extracted the money from them. So it was proved and they were found guilty, and they agreed, okay, whatever you say we will pay. But they were worried that Gandhiji might ask them to pay the entire amount, but Gandhiji said 50%, and he was very adamant, as is been said by Reverend J.Z. Hodge, a British missionary who was a constant observer of the entire episode. And then thinking that maybe Gandhiji will listen, the representative of these planters, they went to him and said that can we reduce that 50% to 25%, and to their amazement Gandhiji agreed. So everyone agreed to this 25%, the landlords, the government officials, and obviously Gandhiji. It was a unanimous decision. And then someone asked Gandhiji, why is it that you agreed for the 25%? That time Gandhiji said, agreeing to 25%, there is one reason. Money is not the matter. The most important thing was that landlords, they were parting with their prestige. They were bowing their head down, and that was more important. So this entire thing taught the peasants as well as the planters a great lesson. The planters, the landlords, they were thinking that they were God, above the law, they could do anything, and they were taught a lesson that no, it's not that way. And the peasants, in them, developed courage. They realized their rights, and they knew that people are there to stand along with them. And eventually the Britishers, they abandoned their ownership over the estates, and it went into the hands of the peasants, and in this way indigo sharecropping totally disappeared. It vanished. Now let's move on to the last part so that we can finish off this chapter. Gandhi never contented himself with large political or economic solutions. He saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and wanted to do something about it immediately. He appealed for teachers, Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parekh, 2 young men who had just joined Gandhi as disciples, and their wives volunteered for the work. Several more came from Bombay, Pune, and other distant parts of the land. Devdas, Gandhi's youngest son, arrived from the ashram, and so did Mrs. Gandhi. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages. Kasturbai taught the ashram rules on personal cleanliness and community sanitation. Gandhiji was having one habit, that he was never contented only with a solution of the problem in which is only one sided. He likes to solve the entire portion, not the half of the portion. Here also he had done something related to, you can't say exactly political, but still government was involved in it, and economic condition also was improved. But he found that socially and culturally, there was a lot of backwardness in Champaran villages. So he decided something must be done about it. He made an appeal to the Indians who are voluntarily ready to come and teach, to dedicate themselves for the upliftment of these villages. Two of his disciples, along with his wife, came there. Not only them, but many people came from the nearby places, from distant places also. His youngest son arrived along with Mrs. Gandhi. 6 schools were opened up, primary schools were opened up in 6 villages. And then Kasturbai, she started giving them lessons on cleanliness and sanitation, staying clean and keeping the surrounding clean. Further, health conditions were miserable. Gandhi got a doctor to volunteer his services for 6 months. 3 medicines were available: castor oil, quinine, and sulfur ointment. Anybody who showed a coated tongue was given a dose of castor oil. Anybody with malaria, fever received quinine plus castor oil. Anybody with skin eruptions received ointment plus castor oil. Okay, health condition. No proper dispensaries, health centers, nothing. But Gandhiji managed to get one doctor who voluntarily, willingly agreed to render his services for 6 months. 3 medicines were available in that health center. One was castor oil, second one was quinine, and the third one was sulfur ointment. Anyone who used to come with a coated tongue. Now when we say coated tongue means when you go to the doctor asks you to show the tongue. I mean to say the doctor is not interested in seeing your tongue, but a tongue tells a lot of things about us, our health. So the coated tongue tells, as I said, tells a lot about our health issues. If anyone used to have coated tongue, means some layers over it, they were given a dose of castor oil to clean the stomach and all. Then if anyone is having fever, malaria or something, quinine along with castor oil. And if skin eruption means inflammation, infection, any kind of skin infection, they used to get the sulfur ointment with castor oil. Gandhi noticed the filthy state of women's clothes. He asked Kasturbai to talk to them about it. One woman took Kasturbai into her hut and said, "Look, there is no box or cupboard here for clothes. The sari I am wearing is the only one I have." Condition of women, especially in the areas like Champaran in those days, was really very pathetic. Gandhi felt very sympathetic and very bad seeing the filthy condition, dirty condition of the poor woman. He asked his wife to talk to them. And when she did so, one woman took her to her hut and said, "See, look around. Can you see any box or cupboard?" No. You know why? Because what sari I'm wearing now, that's the only one I have. My dear students, this is the state of India. This was the state of India before independence, and I think still persists in many of the interior rural areas of our country. During his long stay in Champaran, Gandhi kept a long distance watch on the ashram. He sent regular instructions by mail and asked for financial accounts. Once he wrote to the residents that it was time to fill in the old latrine trenches and dig new ones, otherwise, the old ones would begin to smell bad. Even while he was staying in Champaran, he was concerned about his ashram and he was keeping a good watch over it. He was sending frequent mails, means continuously he used to send instruction through the mail. Mail doesn't mean email over here, my dear students. And he used to keep an eye on the financial accounts also. It is even said that once he had sent a mail regarding filling in the latrine trenches, the old latrine trenches. You might be thinking, why filling in the old latrine trenches? So, my dear students, in the olden days, there were no Indians and Western toilets like how we use in the present time. They used to dig pits and they used to use them as latrines. And when it was about time to fill, and before the bad smell start coming out from that, they used to patch it up and dig the new one to for use. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. What I did, he explained, was a very ordinary thing. I declared that the British could not order me about in my own country. Beautiful part of the entire story. You can say this lines I love the most. Somewhere deep inside, it raises a strength within. It tells us how we can fight against the wrong. Gandhiji calls Champaran to be a turning point, a twist in his life. He says that, as been explained over here, he did nothing very extraordinary. Very ordinary thing he did. You know what was that ordinary thing? He just made the Britishers understand one thing very clearly, that you cannot order me, means they cannot order Gandhiji in his own country. Beautiful, no? The Britishers cannot order an Indian in India because India is Indians. But Champaran did not begin as an act of defense. It grew out of an attempt to alleviate the distress of large numbers of poor peasants. This was the typical Gandhi pattern. His politics were intertwined with the practical day-to-day problems of the millions. His was not a loyalty to abstractions. It was a loyalty to living human beings. When Champaran episode began, it was not an act of disobedience. It was just a step being taken, an attempt being made to solve the issues, the problems of the poor peasants. But then, what all things happened? Indigo sharecropping banned, totally disappeared. Schools opened up, health center opened up. So many things took place. So this was Gandhi's pattern of work. He never did work which was related only to politics. It was something to do with the day-to-day problem of the people. His loyalty was not for big things to show offs, but his loyalty was to the living beings, humans, living beings. Further, it is said, in everything Gandhi did, moreover, he tried to mold a new free Indian who could stand on his own feet and thus make India free. These lines could be understood very clearly if I go back little, and again I would like to speak about that same line which was said over there, that he had given a concrete proof to the British government that their strength until now not dreaded or questioned is being challenged by the Indians. Now that's what he has done. He molded, he gave shape to a new free India where Indians learned to stand on their feet, and this is what led to the freedom of our country. Coming to the last, Early in the Champaran action, Charles Ferrer Andrews, the English pacifist who had become a devoted follower of the Mahatma, came to bid Gandhi farewell before going on a tour of duty to the Fiji Islands. Gandhi's lawyer friends thought it would be a good idea for Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them. Andrews was willing if Gandhi agreed, but Gandhi was vehemently opposed. He said, "You think that in this unequal fight it would be helpful if we have an English man on our side? This shows the weakness of your heart. The cause is just, and you must rely upon yourselves to win the battle. You should not seek a prop in Mr. Andrews because he happens to be an Englishman." Now, here in this para, Gandhiji has taught the lesson of self reliance. Actually, while this Champaran thing was going on, one very great devotee of Gandhiji came to meet him. His name was Charles Ferrer Andrews. He was an Englishman, and he came to say goodbye to Gandhiji because he was supposed to start his journey for Fiji Islands. When the lawyer friends of Gandhiji, they saw Andrew, an Englishman, they thought that it will be a good idea if he stay back in Champaran and help them. Andrew said, "Okay, I'm ready, but only if Gandhiji allows me to do so." When Gandhiji came to know about it, he angrily opposed. What he said, he said to all these lawyer people, Gandhiji's lawyer friends, he said, "Do you think that in this fight, which you consider unequal, because one side the mighty Britishers are there and the other side we Indians, if you think that involving an Englishman because he belongs to that Britishers group, if he fight at your side, you'll win the battle? No. This shows that you are trying to use this Englishman as a prop, as an aid. And this shows your weakness. This shows the weakness of your heart." He said, "My dear friends, if your cause is right, if it is just, rely upon yourself, believe yourself, then only you can win the battle. Please stop looking at Mr. Andrew as a prop just because he's an Englishman." Then he had read our minds correctly, Rajendra Prasad comments, and we had no reply. Gandhi in this way taught us a lesson in self-reliance. Self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers were all bound together. Rajendra Prasad, he made a comment. He said that when Gandhiji said these words to us, actually he succeeded in reading our mind, what was going on in our head. And he was really very correct. They were all thinking to use Andrew as a prop against the Britishers. And in this way, when Gandhiji said that you must learn to rely on yourself, he taught us a lesson of self-reliance, believing oneself. This entire chapter, my dear students, in the beginning of the chapter itself I said that many things are binded together in this, like self-reliance, Indian independence, and help to sharecroppers. True, self-reliance. In this, for the first time, thousands of peasants, when stood together outside the courthouse, it shook the British government because they developed confidence. Though reason might be anything, but they developed that confidence. They learned to stand, to fight for what is theirs. Then Indian independence. It was a turning point because Gandhiji understood that just every Indian has to stand and tell the Britishers that you are not supposed to give order in my own country. Help to sharecroppers. Indigo sharecropping disappeared. It vanished. So in this way, this chapter tells us numerous things. numerous things which are interrelated. And most important thing that this chapter conveys to us is to believe oneself. My dear students, life is full of challenges. No one can ever predict life. So remember, the best weapon to fight these battles is self reliance. Believe, trust, have faith on yourself. And then you can face any challenges, and definitely the success will be knocking your door. My dear students, we have come to the end of this chapter. With regard to the questions which are given in the textbook, while you move through the various videos of this chapter, when you will go through it, you will find the questions at each and every page of it. And I would like you to just go through the questions, try to find out the answers. As the school reopens, we will be discussing it and we will be having a proper answer for it. I'll be guiding you for it. But as I have been requesting in each video, please, every one of you must go through each and every video being prepared by your teachers, because as soon as the school reopens, we have to move on to the next portions. So my dear students, thank you. As the lesson comes to an end, it's time to say goodbye. Stay home, stay safe. Take care.